has a relatively consistent and common perception that the health and safety of our world are decreasing. In reality, this perception is a great misperception.
We live in a world where it's safe, at least safer than 100 years ago.
We don't typically think about how we are going to die or when, and the possibility of our death.
Jump back roughly 100 years. Motor vehicle deaths, plane crashes, and deaths from falling were all in the millions per year.
These deaths have dropped by thousands over the years, and we are now living in the safest time in history.
Since the 14th century, human culture has been shifted where status markers are displayed of property and self-control, whereas in the past, disputes had to be resolved with violence.
Now, due to law enforcement, municipal police forces, legitimate authority, and long-term consequences, our world has made a great amount of progress towards the safety of its citizens.
However, with these drastic cutbacks with death and violence, most people are still under the impression that safety is at a decline.
Most people believe that violence cannot be controlled without solving the root causes of racism, poverty, and inequality. This reasoning is based on moralizing rather than data, which is why most people have no idea how much improvement the data actually shows.
For example, prior to public belief, the homicide count is dropping from 8.8 million homicides per 100,000 people to 2,000 in 2000 to 6.2 in 2015. In 2014, Einstein proposed a goal of reducing the rate of global homicides by 50% within 30 years.
This aspiration may seem unrealistic, but when looking at the data, it is almost even conservative.
So we're going to show you a few graphs.
These graphs show that motor vehicle accident deaths have dropped. Deaths from falls, fires, drowning, and poisons have all dropped. Lightning strike deaths have dropped. Homicide deaths, pedestrian deaths, plane crash deaths, natural disaster deaths, and occupational accident deaths have all dropped, and this list goes on and on. This may not be what people believe, because what kind of stories does the news want to share with us? Stories about people being safe? No. They tell us stories about shootings and bombings and homicides, because these are the stories that are sensational and capturing. In reality, there are so many people in this world that are safe, but those are not the types of stories that the media wants to share with us.
All the breaking news about school shootings and attacks. It's easy for us to underestimate the safety of our world.
I don't think that we appreciate our world enough because, in fact, it is now safer than it has ever been before. PINKER's data shows us that safety has increased dramatically. It still might be a lot of deaths, but the world is definitely a safer place to live in.
We believe we should be optimistic instead of pessimistic about the future of our world and society.
PINKER argues that we are where we should be, and there are many solutions to all these problems that technology has now brought us to reduce the chances of these deaths.
With the information PINKER has provided, it's safe to say that we don't need to freak out yet. It is almost impossible to argue with PINKER with him not using anything more than data to support his argument, proving that all safety hazards have been declining. This is our story. We are two 14-year-old girls living in Hong Kong, and we often travel a lot. While soaring 31,000 feet in the air, have you ever thought about the chances of having a plane crash? Who here has been on a plane?
Raise your hand.
Right.
All of you.
None of us, assuming that all of us are still alive, have been in a plane accident. But imagine living in the 1970s. Any one of us could be one of the 6.5 million people who died every year. The simple things like walking down the street or getting into a car, these actions can lead to your death. But luckily, we have the technology and people to help this. In conclusion, we strongly believe that we should have an optimistic outlook on the future of our world. All the data that we have presented to you today is direct proof that as technology advances, crime rates are declining and safety is increasing.
There is no need to panic. PINKER's argument is not stating that we should ignore the safety of our world, but that we can, however, sit back and relax due to the fact that safety and violent concerns have been drastically decreasing over the past few decades. Thank you.